All right. Okay, we are recording. So good morning, all. Good morning, good morning. Good to see your faces. Today is July 25th. Can you believe it? We have made our way down to our last meeting, our last week of class. So I have a few, I want to do some review today and make sure that we are all caught up. So I'm going to share my screen. We do have a guest pastor who's going to join us. She's tidying up some things at work. Remember, we talked about bivocational pastors? She is one of those. And you may see her pop in. She will join us maybe a little bit closer to 11:30. But I want to take this time to, first of all, I know everyone is not able to join us this Monday morning, but I just wanted to say, first of all, thank you so much. Our virtual forum last week was, in my opinion, was awesome. You did a stellar job. I received a lot of kudos and rave reviews about how well the class was prepared and the information that was presented. I think it was easy to understand. I love the different groups. So I just want to say kudos to you. Thank you so much to my students who are here and those who are watching. You did a wonderful job. And I hope you enjoyed it too. I'm going to go to your class. Let's see here. Okay, give me 1 minute and I'm going to want to share your syllabus real quick. All right, now let me come right back to you. Okay, hope you can see my screen that as I am sharing, just want to look over the syllabus and make sure that we are all on the same page. We are wrapping it up, and I know that you are more than happy. Get you a little bit of break. We're at our last week, so just a couple of things this week. No, this is the week of the 25th, of course. No discussion. You will have one last quiz. It is not posted yet because I still need to do it. You have one last quiz, quiz 3. And quiz 3 will cover the last 3 chapters of your book. 6, which is, I think, is the family in crisis. 7, we're going to touch on today really briefly, which talks about diversity and liberation. And then the last chapter, chapter 8, you all can read that on your own. That one is going to talk about, please forgive me, I'm pulling out my book here. I want to say it's politics. Yeah, political realities. Okay, pastor and political realities. So that will finish us up for the book. I hope the book was enlightening for you. And it's also interesting. Now, remember, this book wasn't written in like 2022 or 2020 for that point. And but some of the things, it was written in I want to say 1996, but it's even awesome, like some of the things that Dr. Proctor and Dr. Taylor spoke about are still happening today, especially with the pandemic. So put this on your calendar. Quiz 3 will be posted. I hopefully want to get that posted today. That will be due on Sunday. And the last thing that you have is your final paper. Your final paper. Let me go back to your page. And everyone, if you go to week 9, your final paper is posted here. Okay, let's talk about your final research paper. All right, so I want you to take some time for this research paper. It's going to focus on an issue within pastoral leadership, and you're going to offer some suggestions for improvement on that issue. Now, in the course, we've been talking about a lot of problems. Now, there may be some that we did not even talk about in this course that you can chat about in your paper. So the first part of the paper will be about the problem. How big is this problem? What causes this problem? how long has it been going on, with pastors? Some people may be talking about pastors leaving churches. Some may be talking about, remember we chatted earlier about bivocational pastors. A bivocational pastor was not heard of, let's say, in 1922, as opposed to 2022. All right. You may talk a little bit more about, remember we chatted about your budgets, and sometimes our churches just don't have enough money. Larger churches have more to go on because they have more people to contribute to the pot. But you may want to chat about, churches not having the funds, and what can you do for a solution on that? All right. Second part of that will be the solution, and you're going to offer solutions to that particular problem. I do ask that you interview at least one person in pastoral leadership to assist you with this paper. Okay, so especially, let's say you're talking about pastoral burnout, or pastors leaving the church. Maybe you have found a pastor that left, or just got burnt out and took a period off or something. All right, as you work through your research, so you can include the pastor's experiences, also include research. Remember, we looked at those articles this semester. Okay, so include research that helps you build this paper and helps you build how big of a problem this situation is. Maybe if you're talking about budgets and churches not having enough budget, you're going to find research on maybe what's the average budget for a small size church. Those type of things. Your paper should be at least 4 pages, double space. And I use MLA format. And I gave some suggestions of topics and issues that we talked about in class. Now, you may have other ideas as well. One of the things that we did not talk about too much was mental health of pastors. During the pandemic, mental health has really taken a front seat, which it should have been before, for all of us, but for our pastors as well. And I was reading some articles a while back that was just very disturbing about, it was a few pastors had unfortunately committed suicide because they just were not able to deal with their own mental situations, and just, felt like they had to be the strong person. So I want you to remember, so I'm gonna put this in the chat, y'all. Quiz 3 is going to cover chapters 6, 7, 8. Okay, and quiz not posted yet, but that's going to be due on Sunday. What's Sunday's date? Is that like the 31st? 31st. That's our last quiz. All right. Last thing is the paper, your final research paper. I'm gonna put this in the chat. Due August the 4th, 8/4. Okay. And that'll be it. Make sure you reach out. Some students have reached out and say, I don't know a pastor person to reach out to. Can you help me out? I can help you out. Also, we have some awesome pastors who are in our class that may be able to help you out if they can help, or maybe they can steer you to another person. But please make sure that you reach out. For those people who are watching the video and I don't see you in class, if you don't have a pastor to interview for your paper, you need to reach out so that I can assist you. Do not wait till the last minute, to do that paper. It'll get you. Okay. All right. So no discussion this week. Just make sure that you make sure that you read up on chapter 6, No, we already did 6. We're going to chat about 7 in just a few minutes, and then I will need you to read chapter 8 on your own. We got kind of behind, okay? All right, so before I move on, any questions about what's due? Any questions? If anything comes to your mind, just put it in the chat. All right. I do thank you. Reverend Allen is here. Reverend Allen, just hold 1 second, and I'm going to go over a little bit of chapter 7, and then we're going to come right to you. Okay, Reverend Allen, thank you so much for joining us. Y'all remember last week, make sure you have your book with you. Remember, this is our last session. Last week, we talked about the pastor and the family in crisis. And I just want somebody to review, want to jog your memory a little bit. How, I think that was Dr. Proctor's chapter. Was that Dr. Proctor? Yes, it was. Somebody tell me quickly, you can open your microphone. How have families changed? How did Dr. Proctor say that families have changed over the years, decades, and probably centuries? I don't remember. Go ahead, Gloria.
Oh, well, I think the biggest difference is that we have changed from the nuclear family.
There you go.
That was how they defined it: mom, dad, 2 point some kids and a dog, and in the home, and that no longer it I won't say it no longer exists, but it's hard to see. And with that, kids and more women working puts more kids as latchkey. So you have that whole dynamics of what happened when the nuclear family disintegrated, and that brought a lot of the social problems that we see today.
Thank you, Miss Gloria. Very good. So the premise, yeah, of chapter 6, Dr. Proctor said, hey, look, we in the church have got to recognize and not put our heads under, what'd you say, like underground. The nuclear family is, I like how you said that, Miss Gloria. It's not that it's not there, because they do exist, but it's not every child's reality. No. And then we also have, you know what we didn't talk about last week? I'm gonna put this in the chat, the blended families as well. I forgot to add that. Um, but now you may have a family here, and then they get married, and then they have some other children, and then now we have a blended family, and that's not all bad. Blended families are wonderful. So there are so many different types of families. Dr. Proctor also talked about sometimes you may have same-sex parents. The family has so many different issues that they are going through now. And the last part of this chapter talked about marriage, but also I like how he lifted up that you don't want to ignore the entire family. Everybody in the church is not going to be married. Everybody don't want to be married. Everybody don't need to be married. So some people have kind of left that in another part of their lives, but they still are a part of the large family congregation. All right, very good. Let's head into chapter 7 real quick, and we're going to touch on just a few things. But I do want to touch on, this is Dr. Proctor again. And if you have your books with you, I just want to touch on a couple of things, and then we are going to go to Reverend Allen. Dr. Proctor, I'm on page 111. But Dr. Proctor lifts up some very interesting things. And I'm telling you, it's almost like deja vu, or is it really scary that our society has not improved from 2022, from 1990 something when he wrote this book? It's just all the same stuff. But he says that much of the pastor's time and attention will be consumed to a lot of issues of diversity. Diversity is really big. And so he brings up some very interesting points. So, for example, I attend a Black church, and it's a part of a Black denomination. So he says that one of the things when we talk about diversity that might be hurting or lacking in some African American churches is we were born, or came into being, because we were forced to worship by ourselves. The slaves were worshiping with their slave masters, and we can go back and do church history and things like that, but we were not welcome. So we said, okay, fine, we'll start our own stuff. And so that's how we got the A.M.E. church, A.M.E. Zion Church, or different Baptist denominations said, you know what, okay, we're gonna worship by ourselves. And hence you have the Black church, which is still going strong today. But Dr. Proctor says that, one of the issues is that because we are majority Black, we have an issue sometimes with diversity. And one of the things that he brought up, and I did want, this is on, I want to say page 113. One of the things, and I do want to get some of your opinions. Some individuals, if you do attend a church, may attend a Black church. But he says, on the other hand, at the top of 113, white churches have interests and program objectives that largely overlook the needs of Blacks. And very few Blacks find the satisfaction that they are looking for in such churches. That's at the top of page 113. I just want to pause right there. Not getting in anybody's business, but I was just curious about that. If anybody maybe attends a multicultural church, or do you agree with that? I put a question mark next to that. I know I actually have a friend from the seminary, and she is an African American woman, and she is a pastor of a majority white church in Alpharetta. It's a United Methodist church, and that church doing real good. But what do you think about that? Do you agree with Dr. Proctor's statement of, he says, white churches have interest and program objectives that largely overlook the needs of Blacks? Anybody want to? Do you agree with him or disagree? Uh-oh, I think you're frozen.
If
Go
someone else
ahead,
has,
Walter.
I
You're
have,
good. Go ahead.
I have, I have one church member also attends one of the predominantly white churches here in the area. She plays in the orchestra there, and she plays in the orchestra because that's her background is in music. But there are some signs that she really has to leave because of the tone of the messages. So yeah, I do agree with what's being said in the book about Dr. Proctor, that there are different agendas in some of the churches.
Right, in some of them. Okay. Thank you, Walter.
Professor Mary,
Yes.
I I was with a Black church, predominantly Black church, that had a few white members, and this is the odd thing. He was very much involved. It was a Southern Baptist church. I belonged to a Southern Baptist church in Decatur, and it was totally different. It was very Black centric, if you say. But this pastor was very aligned with the white mindset. And what bothered me is that over the years, every time there was a shooting of a Black man, he never discussed it. It was no mention. And his prayer would always be, let's pray for both sides, that kind of thing. And I finally left that church. But I found that striking, and he was a Black man raised in, I think, Alabama, that's the position he would take. But he had been given that church by the Southern Baptists. So I think he had a connection to them that I won't say that, I don't see had ulterior motives, but it was evident. But I think, I mean, some prominent shootings, where everybody was, he wasn't. He never spoke about it.
Wow. Yeah, all I can say is wow. Yeah, I know, like those big ones, like the George Floyd, the Trayvon
And
Martin
now,
cases.
yeah, all of those, nothing.
Like, how can you not say anything?
Yes, yes. How can you not
Yeah.
say anything? So that it can be that your denomination affiliation will cause you to. You don't have to be a white church. His like, and it said that he overlooked the needs of Black people. Um,
Wow.
you know,
Definitely. And that brings us, thank you, Miss Gloria. That brings us to the second paragraph in page 113, where you say, Miss Gloria said that this pastor kind of overlooked, right? But Proctor says, if you see that first paragraph on 113, the second, well, should I say second paragraph? He says a pastor must be very intentional, deliberate, and focused in learning the history of the ethnic groups in our society, right? So I like how Proctor also says that sometimes because we are a marginalized group, African Americans or, women or something like that, he says also that the other people are not always our enemy, but you also have to do your history and showing the people this is where we came from, this is where we are, and this is where we can go with the help of the Lord as well. So he also said that the pastor has a, what's the word? An obligation to almost to know history, right? Because as Miss Gloria and Mr. Walter were chatting, that if we are going to help people with liberation, you always have to look back at history. You always have to look back at where did we come from? We weren't always where we are right now. So we have to educate the people. And Proctor always talks about, even though we're minorities, we have to open our doors, we have to open our minds to learning about other people, about learning about even other minority groups, right? Um, Sometimes other minorities may not feel comfortable in, let's say, okay, we're talking about the Black church, but will an Asian person feel comfortable in that Black church? They might not. But Proctor is saying it's the responsibility of the pastor to educate. Let's be educated about so many different groups, not just, y'all know, like, how we do for Black history, right? We will have the whole big program about Black history and Women's History Month, or we'll go out on March in February. But how many African American churches may also reach out and get educated in Asian Islander Pacific? Is that the right one? Asian Islander Pacific Month. And some of them in the congregation might be, of that minority group. Okay, I want to hit this and then we're going to go to Reverend Allen. On page 115, Dr. Proctor talks about we have to look for, or pastors have to look for the least, the lost, and I like how he said this, and the left behind. The least, the lost, and the left behind. So Proctor says it is the pastor's responsibility just as Christ did, to look out for the people in the congregation and the community, of course, that may be suffering from poverty, that may be kind of left behind with their education. He says, of course, to be up on issues of sexism, racism, classism, um, pandemic poverty, because that's what Christ did. He looked for the people who were left behind. And that's the whole issue of inclusiveness. When we talked about, what was this, 1980s, late 1980s, early 1990s, when AIDS really blew up and came on the scene, and people were like, what is this? Well, they bring up that as well. And, we could still talk about other diseases, but AIDS and HIV really comes to point. Being inclusive, getting the church, is the church and the pastor's responsibility, not just the pastor, to include those and reach out and see what type of services and options are available for those who have been left on the margins of society. So remember that. So we're going to pause right here. We can't finish all of chapter 7. And I want you to finish 7, and 8 talks about politics, political realities. All right, all right. Any questions, comments for me? All right. Now, we're going to transition to Reverend Allen. Reverend Francilla Allen is a dear, dear friend of mine, and we served in ministry together here she comes, at Shaw Temple A.M.E. Zion Church in Smyrna, Georgia. And we're going to learn a little bit more about her. She is no longer in Georgia with us. She is in Alabama, as the Lord has moved her to different areas. She was pastoring, received her call to pastor in, what was that, Pennsylvania and Ohio, but now she is in Alabama. And so we're going to take this time. Reverend Allen is with us in 2 roles. And so we're actually kind of backtracking to chapter, what was that, chapter 5, where we talked about pastor as counselor. Was that chapter 5? Ooh, all these chapters keep going. But yes, that was chapter 5 when we talked about the pastor as counselor. And we want to welcome Reverend Allen with us this morning, and she's going to talk to us in twofold as pastor, and she has background in counseling. So we got a double, just double intelligent lady right here. Mr. Walter, uh-oh. Walter, make sure you mute your microphone. Mute your microphone. Uh-oh. Walter, are you able to mute your microphone for us? I think it's frozen. Okay. All right. Okay. Reverend Allen, thank you so much for joining us this morning. And you could go, thank you. Yeah, you could go ahead and open your microphone. And I'm just going to ask you a few questions, and students will pause at the end if you have any questions for Reverend Allen. So I do want you to tell us, what is your background first in ministry? How long have you been in ministry?
I've been officially I've been in ministry all my life, but I've been in
If
the
she has.
preaching ministry. I preached my initial sermon in 2006. I grew up in the parsonage. My father was a pastor, a minister, all of my life. So church was something I knew real well, and I will admit, did not want to preach because I grew up in that home, knowing and seeing a lot of things that I think a lot of PKC wish and hear that they wish they can unsee and hear, and influences them. So I've preached my initial sermon while I was in Georgia at Shaw Temple under Bishop Crenshaw, and went through all of our course of trainings there. And I've pastored in like Reverend Barry said, Ohio and Pennsylvania, and now I'm back home in Alabama, and I'm pastoring my home church where I grew up. I'm in my second year. It has been much better than I anticipated that it would be. I will admit I was extremely concerned because everybody, with the exception of two or three people in the church, are related to me. My mom, my siblings, my cousins, my aunts. But it's good. It's worked out
That's the
well.
best church.
Well, I was
Well, okay.
concerned. I was concerned, in the Bible they say the prophet has no honor at home. I was really
Oh,
concerned, but they really respect me, what I bring, and they were very embracing of me as their pastor, and I love it. It's great. It's going well, so it's been well, much better than I anticipated.
awesome. Reverend Allen, your church is Mount Zion.
It's Mount Zion A.M.E. Zion Church in Citronelle, Alabama. That's just about 35 miles north of Mobile, Alabama.
I'm gonna put this in the chat.
Okay, that's fine. And I want to say thank you to Reverend Barry for inviting me to come and share with you all on a day. I hope and pray that something I share will be helpful to you all. Please overlook, I have a sinus infection that I can't seem to get rid of. It's not COVID. I took a test. But I just can't seem to get rid of this sinus infection. So I may sound a bit congested, but
That's
we're
all
gonna
right.
press forward.
That's it. All right, we'll get you some saline drops afterwards.
Yes.
Yeah. All right, Reverend Allen, we hear your ministry side. Now I want you to share with the class your background. You are very unique where you have a background in psychology. Tell us your preparation in that as well.
Yes, I have a master's of science in psychology with a focus in clinical specialization. I also have doctoral coursework, ABD, Albert dissertation, for my degree, doctoral degree in clinical psychology. So I believed firmly in psychology, therapy, counseling, and having a licensed professional trained person to provide therapy. That's one of the things when I entered into ministry, one of my things was that, I mean, it's awesome that we have pastoral counseling.
Yeah.
Um, but if people are having mental health issues, mood disorders, and we know that those all have a biological basis, that they need to ensure that the members are being um, receiving professional counseling from someone who studies that and understands those differences. So that's one of my passions. Destigmatizing mental health is another one of my passions, especially in our church and in our community, so that we understand, you're a strong, smart person if you recognize you need therapy, mental health therapy, and you seek it as opposed to being considered crazy.
That's it. That's it.
Right.
And I like how you said that our team, let's see, who was on the counseling team? That was last week. I forgot who was on our counseling team. I think that was Mary. But anyway, in our forum last week, Reverend Allen, our students talked about pastoral counseling and uh, regular counseling. I guess we would call it clinical counseling. So I want you to chat a little bit about your experience of pastoral counseling and when you felt like, ooh, this might be going in the realm of my other hat, clinical.
So, reality is this: I'm a trained counselor. So, my clinical hat basically is always on. It That's just like a baseline for me. I used to tell people, "Oh, I'm not assessing you," but the reality is it's second nature for me to listen to what people are saying and kind of categorize what's going on. I will say this, in clinical counseling, whenever I'm getting ready to see someone or if someone calls me a member and they're talking, I immediately begin to pray,
Mhm.
because the first thing I want to know is, okay, God, I don't know what they're calling me about, but I want to share with them what you have for me to share with them, right? And I want to help them. And I need you to direct and guide me and reveal to me what it is I need to do to help this person. This is all across the board. This is just me because of my faith belief, right? That's how I approach counseling, period, whether it's pastoral counseling or officially providing professional mental health counseling. That's how I get through it so that I'm in tune with what the person is saying and I'm listening to what they're not saying because a lot of times people don't say what's really the problem. They kind of walk around it. But with pastoral counseling, typically, people come to you to talk about it may be some family issues or it may be relational issues. Those have been the things and how they are related to biblical principles. And so, one of the main differences between pastoral counseling and professional counseling is that in pastoral counseling, you're relying on your theological beliefs, right, and your biblical principles as some guiding forces. We now have what is known as Christian counseling. And in Christian counseling, they rely on biblical principles and theological beliefs as they provide counseling, but they also have, excuse me, they also have additional coursework in understanding and assessment. So it's like a combination, but they do rely on biblical principles and theological beliefs as the foundational principles and guiding the person through the therapeutic process. In counseling, I rely on, different theoretical orientations. I believe in cognitive behavioral therapy, which is that your thoughts impact your behaviors and your actions. So, what you think about something, how you view something, affects how you respond to it. I'm a little eclectic, I would say. I also truly believe in interpersonal therapy, your
Mhm.
interpersonal relationships, right? How you engage with people. That also impacts how you respond to them, what your relationship is like with them. Um, as well as, of course, foundational principles in therapy and counseling is compassion, acceptance, understanding, and also you challenge the person. A lot of people don't talk about this in counseling or in therapeutic settings, but as the therapist, I'm listening to the person talk about whatever issue or concern it is, and I'm bringing to their awareness how they may respond with other people or how other people view them. Because a lot of times we don't know how other people view us as we're engaging with them. But as a therapist, it's my job to point out to you or bring to your awareness how you're engaging with me. Because more than likely, after you become comfortable with a therapist, you engage with your therapist similar to how you engage with some other people in your life. It begins to mirror that. So I bring to your awareness how you're engaging with me, what are some of the things that you say, and how that makes me feel, right? Because if it brings up something in me, it probably brings up something in other people also. So those are some of the main differences. Now, like I said, the reality is I'm a trained therapist, mental health professional. Always in my mind, I'm listening, watching nonverbal cues. Those are really big, right? We talk a lot without using words. We talk with our facial expressions, we talk with our hands, we talk with our bodies, whether we have our arms down by our side or if they're folded across, or if you got your hand over your eyes, like my mom does sometimes when she don't want to be bothered with us. She'll just,
Hey.
my mom's 91 and she has dementia. She just puts her
Oh,
hands over the eyes. We say,
yeah.
is the light too bright? It's not it. She just don't want to talk
Who
anymore.
wants
So
to
that's just
talk?
what she does
Okay.
sometimes. So, but we all have these nonverbal cues. So we have to be attuned to all of those cues. And as you're working with individuals, just be aware of those things and aware of yourself also about how you're responding to someone, because then that can determine how much they share with you or don't share with you.
That's
I think I
good.
probably went kind of
That's fine.
several different places, but
That's great, Reverend Allen. I have the next question I have for you is what would you offer to we have some of our classmates are pastors,
Mhm.
some of our classmates are ministers, some are members, of a church. So we have different uh, groups here. What advice would you offer to a pastor or a minister that is being sought after for counseling from a parishioner, but does not have the training that you have?
Okay. Refer, refer, and refer
All right.
to a licensed mental health professional.
All right.
One of the things that I share with my friends who are ministers who don't have my training background is that whenever you move into an area, you need to begin to develop your resource list.
Yeah.
Develop your resource list, right? So there are probably some members in your church potentially who have a background in counseling or therapy. Get to know your members, find out. If so, make a note of that and talk to them and ask them, are you willing to provide crisis counseling until we get a member or person into therapy with someone who's a professional? Or do you receive, are you, receiving clients, right? So that then you'll have a list of people to refer to. If you don't have anyone in your church, they may know someone else who is a therapist. So,
Hmm.
talk to your members, find out who are the therapists in your area, develop that resource. Another way that you can do that is also, if a member is employed and they have health insurance, their health insurance has a list of counselors and therapists that receive or use their insurance, that accepts their insurance. So I always encourage pastors to talk to their members about that. If a person is coming to you, definitely listen to them, provide some crisis counseling, but connect them with the right resources. Also, there just now that has just been released, I believe it was just a couple of weeks ago, early this month, is a 988 number
That's right.
for
Yeah.
for suicide and mental health crisis. Before you had this 10-digit number like every other number, but now
Mm.
they've developed just a 3-digit number like the 911, but it's 988. And it's for
Yes.
individuals who have any type of suicidal ideations or a mental health crisis. They have trained professionals. You can call into that line. They will provide you with counseling and some therapy and help to connect you with other professionals. Okay, so that's a resource. Um, Also, I use the American Psychological Association, apa.org. They have a website, or that's American Psychological Association, apa.org, or as well as the American Counseling Association, so that's aca.org. These are the official professional counseling agencies. Um, and typically, those websites have a list of therapists. They usually have a page where you can go and find a list of therapists in your area, like put in your zip code and stuff like that, or just look for therapists in your state and in your city. That's another resource to find a therapist. And then one that I really, really love is therapyforblackgirls.com. It's therapy for black girls. It's spelled just like it sounds. Com. It's created by an African American therapist, and there are other therapists that are there. Once again, if you're looking for a therapist in your area, you can put in your zip code or your city and state, and you can find one. That's actually how I found my current therapist, who I've had for 3 years. She was actually listed there and on the APA website. And the name of her counseling agency is Genesis. And I'd been praying. I said, okay, Lord, I need another therapist because I believe in therapy. I believe in having a mental health therapist for myself. That's something else I encourage every pastor or minister is to have that person
That was
that
going to
you
be my
can talk
next
to.
question. So
Oh,
you roll right into it. So it was going good. Say you can say that again. Help for the pastors. Go ahead.
help for the pastor. Every pastor needs their own therapist. that person that you are comfortable with, you can confide in and talk about everything. You can talk about everything and everybody, and you don't have to worry about nobody else hearing it. That's what I love about going to my therapist because I get to talk about my stuff because I have to deal with my stuff in order to help everybody else deal with their stuff. But if I don't deal with my stuff, then when you bring me your stuff, it all builds up and I can't deal with it. So it's really important as a pastor and a minister that you have your own
Your
professional
own.
counselor and therapist. It's great to
Definitely.
have mentors. I have mentors. I have several mentors in the ministry. When I began, I prayed and asked God to show me my mentor, and He gave me two women mentors. One was a pastor, became a presiding elder in the life of our church. The other has been a minister at Shaw Temple, where I was at that time, and is an awesome woman of God. She has never pastored, but her gifts, her talents in administration are awesome. And I needed both of those persons along with our bishop, who I preached my initial sermon under and received all of my official training.
He's our
So
big daddy.
that's our big daddy. That's right. That's right. That's right. Pastor Bishop. Pastor. When I call him, I say, "Hey, Pastor Bishop," because I try to give him respect. But he is
Yes,
my
he's always
pastor,
gonna be our
my
pastor.
pastor, and my big brother. Him and his wife are my big brother and big
They
sister.
are
They
so sweet.
love me like family, and they'll call me and be like, "Look here, girl." Anyway, I'm off track.
That's all right. Reverend
So
Allen, we recognize you're at work, and but I do want to get some of the questions in the
okay,
chat.
go ahead.
Um, any recommendations specifically this is from Sharon Duhar? Any recommendations specifically for men of color or incarcerated individuals or formerly convicted individuals?
So, interesting. I used to work with persons incarcerated. I provided therapy in some county jails and in some state prisons for men and women, and then in county jails, both are there. So, when a person's incarcerated and they're about to get out, in most jails and most prisons have, if they don't have mental health counseling, most of them do though there because they have crisis counseling, and they also have social workers who assist them in preparing for release to get appointments with other mental health professionals in the community. So if someone is incarcerated and they're about to be released, they need to talk to their social worker for their facility and try to get some appointments made, find out about others in their community who could provide therapy or counseling to them. Also, if they are on probation or parole, depending upon probation is you never go to jail. Parole is you go to prison. Well, probation is you never go to prison. You just get probation. Parole is you go to prison and you get out early. So you're on parole where they monitor you until you complete whatever time they have for you. At any rate, your parole or probation officer should also have some resources or know of mental health counselors or resources within the area. Typically, there are private practice and some nonprofits that specialize in working with individuals who are formerly incarcerated. I worked in the jail as well as in a private practice, and we were known to receive referrals from the prison for persons who are being released on parole. In this particular private practice, we worked with individuals who were um, sex offenders, and so those were some of their crimes. And so there's therapy and counseling out there for any, and I just shared that to let you know to run the gamut for people who have been incarcerated. So definitely have them to tap into whom is the social worker for their facility because they have a lot more resources than what we may have in the community or know about.
Wow, thank you, Reverend Allen. I remember
Mhm.
that you were working in you were working in the jail. Was that in Georgia?
In Georgia, there was a
Yeah,
women's prison there. It's
women's
closed
prison.
now. I
Uh-oh.
worked there, and then in Ohio, I worked in a county jail, and then in Pennsylvania, I worked in a maximum security men's prison.
Ooh,
Um, the women's prison was maximum security too, but they're just people.
that's it.
And it's your perspective of them going in the door. My perspective are they made a mistake and got caught. We all have
Yeah,
broke the law. I don't care who you are, what I don't care how much you love the Lord.
that's right.
We all have broke the law, whether it's speeding,
Well,
whatever the case may be, we broke the law, you know, and by the grace of God, we may have not gotten caught or we
that's
didn't
right.
have to do any time. So my perspective is it's a human being who made a mistake and they're serving time for the mistake that they made. And so I treat them with respect as I would want someone to treat me no matter where I am. So yeah.
That's good. Reverend Allen, we have a hand up, and also students, if you have
Okay.
any questions for Reverend Allen, we're going to let Gloria go first, and then if any students have any other questions as we wrap up, you go right ahead. Go ahead, Miss Gloria.
Reverend Allen, how do you deal with this stigma within the Black church? Because they, you just pray it away. Everything you can pray it away, and if you have friends or somebody comes to you and you tell them you ought to see a counselor, they get offended. So how do you deal with that resistance?
Right, that's a great question, Gloria. Great, great question. So I believe in prayer and I believe in God. And God gave us man knowledge, skills, and ability to help ourselves and to help one another. Just like you go to your medical doctor, your primary care physician, when you have problems with your insulin levels or if your blood pressure is too high and they put you on medication, I tell people that a mental health issue is a medical health issue because it is an imbalance of the neurotransmitters or neurohormones within your brain. If your hormones aren't balanced, then you're not going to be balanced. That's why people experience hallucinations and delusions. That's why people experience mood disorders, whether it's mania or whether it's a depressive mood. These are biochemical imbalances in your brain. So I break it down to a medical meaning because it is. And just like you go to the doctor for your physical every year and they check your blood pressure, they check your A1C. And if those are not normal levels, they prescribe you medication. Or if you're having problems with arthritis, or if you need some bone problems, you go see an orthopedic specialist. I go see a mental health counselor or professional counselor because I have a medical imbalance in my brain. And this is a specialist that helps me to deal with that. And that's what we have to break it down to the medical model. It's not a lack of faith. I believe in God. I trust God. I know God can heal me. I also know that God has provided man with knowledge to help us and to help one another. So I try to help people to see it from a medical model perspective as well as a faith and a trust. And I tell people, you crazy if you don't go get help for anything you got going on with you. If you having a pain, go get some help. Go talk to the doctor. Just like you see your primary care doctor, go talk to a mental health professional, someone's trained, and look for, if you want someone to have your faith belief, you can look for that because there are therapists out there that do, and that's just what you look for when you're looking for your counselor. I've had different counselors at different points in my life, and God has guided me to every single one. I thought that I always needed to have a female African American woman. My first counselor was a white male. I think he was Jewish. I'm not absolutely sure. I think he was, but he was awesome for me at that point in my life and what I was dealing with. My next therapist was a Caucasian woman who also was an ordained minister in a Presbyterian church. Awesome, because I needed somebody who, when I said the Lord spoke to me, she didn't think I was having hallucinations. She think I was. So God provided that for me. And my current therapist is an African American woman who is Christian. Her husband is a pastor. So she has that background also to understand when I say church folk, she already know what I'm talking about. right? So God will lead you if you seek Him and ask Him to lead you to what you need and who you need. You're
That
welcome.
was a great question. Reverend Marshall had a hand up. We'll let you go next.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Allen, uh, Reverend. And I saw where you said that every pastor needed needed a therapist. Now, you don't think that there's another way that he can cope with the problems, exercise, or reading a book, or taking vacation, or taking time off? Do they really need a therapist?
You can do all of that, and I do all of that, but you need somebody that you can talk to. Now, I'm gonna be real with you now. You
Hmm.
need somebody that you can talk to about what's really going on with you, because you can do all those things, and if all those things aren't working, what do you do? Where do you go? So I do all those things and I have a therapist because I know that it's beneficial for me to be able to go and talk about my stuff. The therapist helps you to work through, like I said, your stuff, whatever it is. And I don't have no major stuff. I just like to be able to go somewhere. I'm a super private person. So I don't even like to talk to my own family about my stuff. 'Cause they talk. If I tell my sister one
Yeah.
thing, guess what? My other sister gonna know and my brother gonna know. And I'd be like, Dad, do I have to say don't talk about this? Yeah, I know that. But that's just family. That's the family dynamics. I'm one of nine. I know that, right? So I recognize that. So I believe that a therapist is a person that you can go to and be just very transparent and honest about everything that's going on. And you don't have to worry about any judgment about you or your thoughts or your beliefs. And they help you to understand you. That's what a therapist is about, is you understanding you and how you're managing through whatever situations come up for you in life. Yes, exercise is great. Yeah, all of us, we all need to walk. Next month, my church, we're doing the American Cancer Society 25 sit up challenge. We got to do 25 sit ups each day, and generate funds for cancer research, right? That's great. Walk, run, take a vacation. I just came back from vacation 2 weeks ago. I went to Orlando with my sorority sisters, had a ball, the best vacation I've had in the longest time. I have those other outlets. I have my family that I chill out with, even though they my members. I still can chill with them because they still my family too. And all of those things, journaling, I love journaling. I'm always buying journals and filling them up. Prayer, beautiful. I have my mentors. I talk to my mentors about a lot of things, right? But for me personally, and I believe for any pastor, or that, having that one individual, and you may not go every week, you may just go once a month or once every other month, but you have this cyclical opportunity to go and talk about these things that you are dealing with. Within your church, perhaps, within your family, perhaps, or just thoughts within yourself that help you to process all of that so that it doesn't pile up. And then you've got all of this stuff and you become overwhelmed and you don't know what to do, and then you're in a crisis state. To me, therapy is preventative medicine, right? So that I don't end up in a crisis state. But all those other things that you listed are fabulous. Have you a great mentor, your father in the ministry, your bishop or apostle, or whoever you have in your church? All of those are great people to have, right? But I also believe that you should have a therapist. That's my own personal belief and from my own personal experience.
Thank you, Reverend, and thank you for that number, that 988. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much, Reverend Ingram. Minister Janice had a question in the chat. People tend to believe that if a person sees a therapist, that person is crazy. How do you handle that?
You're crazy if you don't see a therapist. Honestly, I really believe that. I just believe this is a person. This is how I look at it. This is a person who's been professionally trained. They have a bachelor's degree and then they have a master's degree. And in their master's program, they have to take certain coursework for ethical principles. They have to take coursework in theoretical principles, and they have to do a practicum where they sit and they talk and they listen and they receive feedback from another professional that guides them in developing their therapeutic process. This is a person that is professionally trained to help you walk through your issues and problems. Just like your medical doctor
Just like the
goes
doctor.
through 4 years of undergrad, 4 years of medical school, then goes to residency and internship and residency, the same with a trained professional. And that, once again, is the comparisons that I try to make to help people see the significance and the importance and destigmatize going to see a therapist or getting professional help.
Destigmatized. That's it. Destigmatized. Because I think in the African American community, in our, which we bring to the church or the workplace or to our families, is that, oh, it's taboo, it's weird, it's wrong. I see Dejanay, I see your hand. Um, and let me say this real quick, then we'll get to Dejanay. I love your questions, y'all. Is I can I use this word, y'all? I thought I was okay until I went to seminary.
Hmm.
And I had a class, and Reverend Allen knows this, that it really messed with me. It was a pastoral counseling class,
Mhm.
and we had to write some things about, you write about your family. And I was like, oh, I'm perfect. Nothing's wrong with me. And when we started sharing some things, and I was like, oh, well, maybe that is an issue. maybe I do need some counseling. And Reverend Allen had been a great help in some areas for me. I've talked with her, I've talked with other counselors, and y'all, it really helps. Like, I had some things that I didn't even know that was an issue.
Mhm.
All right, Dejanay, go ahead, open your microphone.
My question pretty much was just asking about the therapy for Black girls. Was that you said was a Christian based one as well too?
Not necessarily. It's a website. It's called Therapy for Black Girls, but they have also a section where they have therapists that are listed or that's joined, and you can go there and look for a therapist in your area. Some of them may be Christian based. Read their profiles. Typically, if they are, they'll mention that. So just read the profile for the individual and then read that profile, and then what I do is then I just do a simple Google search and I
Wow.
Google them, and then I just try to find as much information as I can about them, and then before I set an appointment. Now here's the thing also, I know people don't want to hear this, but this is true. Finding a therapist is sometimes like finding a mate. You got to date first to find your therapist. So I do some research. That's why I do all my research up front. I read, I do my research, try to find as much as I can. Call the therapist. And usually they'll answer some questions over the phone just about, what's your perspective? Are you Christian based? Do you believe in God? You ask those questions to find out if that's going to be a good fit for you for therapy. And that's okay to do that. That's what you should do. Just like you ask questions about people when you go out on a date and you're looking for a mate, you ask those questions. So you should do the same thing with your therapist so that you find the therapist that is right for you. Like I said, I've been truly blessed. I pray whenever I'm about to look for a therapist, I pray and I pray. And I'm like, God, you know what I need right now. So you need to send me who I need. And God, faithful, God is faithful. Y'all know this, right? God is
Yes,
very faithful. He will do what will help you if you listen to him. Sometimes we
yes,
don't want to listen, but do that. So yeah, they're different. And you can even do a search for a Christian counselor,
Mm-hmm.
and that will pull up names of people who actually therapists who advertise as a counselor with a Christian theological theoretical orientation.
Okay. And do you guys mind if I ask one more question about like dealing with pastoral?
sure, go ahead.
So my question is like, as a pastor, well, I'm not a pastor, but like as a pastor, when you're getting ready to like build and move and whatnot, how does one like prepare for that as a whole, like as the church as a whole, versus it just solely being heavy on the pastor?
And when you say build and move, can you explain a little bit more what you mean? I think I know, but I want
Just
to
like
be sure.
just doing another, like another planning another church, like
Okay.
feeling led to plan another church for God and whatnot.
hmm So, first of all, prayer, and meditation, and being intentional and listening. Like we have, a lot of times we pray and then we get going and we don't wait to hear from God. So first really be in prayer that God is leading you to plant a church and ask him, be specific, ask him, where do you want me to plant this church? Who should be my mentors in planting a church? And different church denominations plant churches in different ways. I believe the absolute best way to plant a church is, and I've never planted a church. Let me just be very honest with you guys about that. I've always been appointed to a church that's already existing. My first church had 4 members, and but I've always been appointed to a church that's existing. But when you are moving in that realm of planting a church, um, identifying an area, right? You have to look at the demographics of that area, who the people there, go and pull the population for that area. This is some of your background research that you need to do. Also, look at, if you happen to be a part of a denomination, talking to the leadership for your area about asking different churches to sow a seed of members, right? So people who may already live in that area that you're looking at planting a church, ask them if there are members. And we've done this before. And it works. Ask the members. Say, Sister, what's your name? What's your name? Who asked the question? Oh, I'll just say Sister Mary.
Deja.
Deja Graham.
Deja. Say Sister Deja is planning the church. God has given her this, and it's going to be in this location. I know we have several members who live close to this location. In the past, ask, are there members who are willing to be seed members to go and join in planting this church with her, right? So that you get some first members. So you're not out there looking for everybody. At least you got some people that who want to be there and to build that church, right? So then you have seed members, and then even that church also provides some financial resources because it costs money to grow a church or build a church or plant a church. So asking for that and seeking that guidance in doing that. But definitely doing your homework, pulling the demographics of that area and seeing if there are people who live in that area. Because people want to go to church, right? Like they want to be within 5 miles of where they live. Most people want to go to church. They want it to be close so that it's convenient, right? When it's convenient, they'll show up for all the other things. Also, think about the other ministries that you're bringing and not just the preach gospel. The preach gospel is a vital and important ministry. How are you meeting the needs of the people in that community? What do the people need? Do the students need tutoring? Um, do they need some type of guidance in how to interact with one another in a personal relationships? We all know that there are so many issues with interacting with the police. Maybe provide a workshop or a seminar, bring in an African American police officer so they can talk to them about how to engage if you are stopped by the police, right? Those things that are issues and concerns for that community where you want to plant a church, provide ministries for that so that people want to come and be a part of it. We got to think about the person as a whole, not just the word that we're going to be preaching. Yes, we want to get the gospel out there, but if people don't know you care about them and what they're going through, why would they want to come and join your church? And that's for any church, a new church or existing church, just period.
That's right. In one of our chapters, we talked about meeting the needs. What was it? Meeting the needs of the assessed needs of
hmm
the community. Well, thank you so much, Reverend Allen. This has been just a wonderful time of learning and sharing. We know you working. And remember, y'all, we talked
Yes,
about bivocational pastors. So this is also
me.
another chapter.
Bivocational.
Bivocational.
Yes, I work for the Alabama Department of Mental Health as a
Mhm.
director for support coordination. So I'm responsible for support coordinators known as case managers throughout the state, being trained, prepared to do their job. So bivocational, always have your own source of income. I'm
Yes.
telling y'all, I learned that from my father. My father says, don't rely on the church. I know there's some people who believe in that, and that's fine. But I just always believe in having my own source of income so that I'm able to I like my independence. I like to buy what I want to buy, and I don't want nobody to tell me how to buy what I buy.
That's right.
Right?
And
And
Reverend
so,
Allen, we were talking earlier, and we're going to wrap up. Reverend Allen is a single woman, and so she wants to make sure she has her funds and retirement and things like that. As
right.
well as we have some here on that are pastors that are married that also want to be able to provide for
The
their
family.
family, yeah, as well. Well, we are so thankful, Reverend Allen. Thank you for joining us. We have picked your brain, and you have
Yes.
really enlightened us to pastoring, um, clinical counseling, pastoral counseling, and we are just, anybody else had any other questions, you can put them in the chat, and I can email Reverend Allen if you have any further questions regarding counseling, and I can send those out to her. Well, students, I want to thank you once
Thank
again. Got some thank yous in the chat. Students, it has been just a pleasure being with you this summer. Let me say this real quick, and I know I'm forgetting the date, but please make sure you go ahead and register for your classes for the fall. We have, and I'm working off my memory, Introduction to Religious Studies and Old Testament. So you want to go ahead and make sure, if you haven't done it already, the classes look really good. Make sure that you register for the fall. Um, and I think that's it. And if you need help with registration, thank you, Miss Duhart. Please email Miss Duhart at, it's in the chat. Oh, those people who are watching, let me say, those people who are watching is S. Duhart, Duhart at atlm.edu. All right, dear students, have a blessed summer. I will see you in the fall and continuing to grade and catch up on your assignments. All
Thank you,
right.
Dr.
Hey there,
Eric.
Marshall. Say bye-bye.
All right.
All right, everybody, you take care. Oh, Ms.
Thank you
Duhart
too.
said, or if anyone you know who would like to join us for the program, yes, please email Ms. Duhart. All right. Bless you all.